welcome to another video by Unitator YouTube. Today I will be doing a short review on the Löwe, the Tier 8 German Premium Heavy Tank. Before I begin, however, I must apologize for any scratching noise that may occur in the audio. I do not have a professional headset, so I must make do with a gaming headset. So, what is the Löwe exactly? Well, the Löwe is a 70-ton super heavy tank that is supposed to be designed in 1941. Now, the Löwe stands for the Lion. However, the project was cancelled by Hitler in decision to pursue even heavier tanks like the E-100. Now, the Löwe has a 105 quick 46 L70 gun, and although it does look fairly well armored, it does not have the best armor. So, what is good and bad about this gun? About this tank, rather? Well, it is a very, very, very good gun for Tier 8. It is a Tier 9 105mm quick L70 gun. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, it means it has that amazing penetration at 234 on the standard rounds. It has a high velocity shell speed, which means that you don't have to lead your targets as much at high distances, and it also retains its penetration value over large distances, which means that you can play this tank as a very good sniper. Secondly, the tank does have a decent amount of hit points at 1500. This is very competitive at its tier, rivaling the Tiger II, its non-premium cousin, the VKA 4502A, its other cousin, which is a very good hit point pool, meaning you can take some shots if needed. Thirdly, it is a premium tank, Tier 8 premium tank, which means that it makes excellent credits. In World Tanks Blitz, the Löwe actually has a 15% greater credit earning coefficient than the T-34, one of the best credit earning tanks in game. The thing is that the Löwe's reputation has been tarnished because of the amount of bad players that play it. However, this tank should definitely not be considered a threat in the hands of a good player. It is excellent at range combat due to its gun. It is actually really fun when you're top tier and you can easily bully the low tanks. It has very few weak spots on the armor if you can manage to get hull down. The cupola is very hard to hit, and if you rock back and forth, the turret cheeks, which are slightly weaker, will be able to bounce as well. The hull armor, however, cannot be relied upon unless you're acting on lower tiers, because although it is very well sloped, it does not have a amazing armor thickness. It does have very large tracks, like many of its German counterparts, which means that its tracks have very high HP and can take several hits if need be. In addition, it has very good on-the-move dispersion at only 0.33 at 100 meters. So, what is bad about this tank? What has given this tank such a terrible, terrible reputation? Well, it is a difficult tank to play, especially for beginners who often try to use this tank. It is a giant target, which means that although it has to generally be a second-line supporter or a sniper, it is hard to keep yourself covered. As a result, it also has a horrible camo value, once again adding to the difficulty of its sniping. It has subpar armor, as I've stated before, especially for a Tier 8 super heavy tank, because it only has 120mm at the front and then 80 on the sides and rear, and then 120 at the front and 80 on the sides and rear for both the hull and the turret. This means that although the front of the hull is very well sloped, it will not be able to bounce many shots from Tier 7, 8, and 9. And yes, 10. This tank does not get preferential matchmaking. Thirdly, it has a very poor power-to-weight ratio, which means that it is very sluggish indeed, albeit the Löwe has been buffed several times in the past updates. Its traverse, both in hull and turret, its dispersion, it's all been increased, but it is still quite sluggish due to the poor power-to-weight ratio and poor ground resistances. This tank also has a comparatively low damage per minute. Now, what does that mean? Well, the gun's performance itself is excellent. The gun has an amazing penetration, amazing dispersion, but the damage is a meager 310. This combined with the very poor 5.45 rounds a minute means that you can only have a average damage of about 1500 or so, a little bit more than 1500, which is subpar, even mediocre for a tier 8 heavy tank. Your ammunition count is slightly low. I have run out several times of AP in this tank, and the shell price itself is slightly higher at 1030 for North Standard rounds and 4000 for its APCR rounds. Like its German counterparts, it also shares a very, very weak transmission and engine, both of which are placed at the front and side of the tank, which can catch fire easily. Its Amorak is also quite weak as well, which is a problem when you are trying to defend against enemy tanks. This tank, especially in Blitz, has even worse gun depression than in PC. In Blitz, the Löwe has a gun depression angle of only 6 degrees, which makes using its turret armor and the flexibility of its gun much more difficult in its performance. This tank also is very easy in terms of getting flanked. It loses crew members, such as the driver, fairly frequently, and it has a steep learning curve as compared to, say, a tank such as the IS-6, or a tank such as the KB-5, or a tank such as the T-34. So, while this tank does have some very, very good attributes, its negatives do hold quite a lot of sway as well. So you have to be very careful in your playstyle, and you have to be able to adapt to different situations. So, enough of the theory crafting, let's get stuck into some gameplay. Alrighty, so as you can see here, we are on our inner Löwe on Castilla, the Spanish map. Now, as should happen in almost any Castilian counter, the hill and the area surrounding the cap circle should always be captured first because it controls the outlook onto the rest of the map, and of course it controls the town area, which is critical in defending against the enemies who might be flanking. So initially, of course, I saw some teammates going the other way, so I tried to assuage them to come with me to support me in going the other way, which luckily it did seem work. We got the IS-8, E4, and some others. I take a pot shot at this M48, luckily it hits. For a moment there I was thinking going behind the rock, however then I decided against it because in such a situation where you are being attacked by multiple enemies, it's critical what kind of choice you make. Do you stay back and possibly get flanked or shot and push into a situation where you cannot escape from, or you can push forward into a frontal position in which you can break through the front of the enemy and move that way. In this example, I decided to do the latter. I just quickly shot a negative to that T-44 who was slightly blocking my movements up and down the slope. But anyways, we are putting some rounds into this T-54. Now, as you can see, the Löwe's penetration is quite good, especially since it's a tier 9 gun. However, sometimes, like on that T-54, if I say I was going to shoot that IS-7, some APCR would have been necessary, especially at that kind of an angle. But that's really no matter because you definitely make a lot of credits in this tank. You know, I believe I said this in the review portion, but this tank has the highest credit earning coefficient of any tank currently in the game. I believe that the T-34 is at 165%, whereas the Löwe is at 180%, so it's about 15% higher than the T-34's credit earning. Unfortunately, that shot goes into the IS-7's track. Here, I try to side scrape, put one in, I try to angle my armor, however he manages to shoot one into my side in a lucky penetration there. I decide to back off and try to let myself reload, but also let the IS-7 fire at another target before I try to engage him because I do not want to get shot. The IS-7 fires, the IS-7 tries to back up, and I put one into his front plate. Now all we have left is this M48. We put one into the back of his turret. As you can see here, of course, the dispersion and the accuracy on this gun is excellent. as you should expect from this gun. But pretty much that's the game. And I was initially surprised that this was a mastery badge. An ace mastery badge, as you can see here, with only 2,597 damage, which I felt was pretty low. But then, as you can see here, I looked at my battle performance and I saw that I had a lot more a lot more spotting damage, so that is really great. Anyways, thank you for tuning into the channel. If you have enjoyed this recording, please leave a like or subscribe down below, and tank on.